If you had the over on 5 innings pitched for Corey Kluber last night down in Camden Yards, Maggie, you won. As Corey Kluber pitched actually pretty well, very well for the Yankees in their 5-1 victory over the Baltimore Orioles, giving 6 2/3 innings of work. And you've been waiting for Corey Kluber to give this team and give this bullpen a little bit of length. We've talked a lot about that with this starting rotation outside of Garrett Cole. So you got Kluber pitching well. That's kind of the side story, not to the victory because you needed it, and he was very, very good, and the Yankees bounced back even though their base running is absolutely abhorrent right now. That's bad, but they beat the Orioles last night 5-1. You get, you get offense from Judge, you get offense and a home run from Giancarlo Stanton to straightaway center field, Kyle Higashioka chipping in, and that was the huge storyline before the game and after it as well because for the Yankees they said basically enough is enough, at least for right now with Gary Sanchez, because it was announced that, and Aaron Boone hinted upon it last week about Kyle Higashioka earning more playing time, and he basically made the declarative statement last night. It's not like that Kyle Higashioka is going to be starting every single game here moving forward, but he's going to be playing a lot more than Gary Sanchez. And we've talked about Sanchez after the good start to this year, Maggie, has really hit the skids offensively, missing and swinging and misses on strikes and fastballs in the zone, not at 98, 99 miles an hour. His bat right now can't catch up with a 95-mile-an-hour fastball, and that's concerning when you look at, his swing and miss rate, what we saw last year, what we've seen right now in the last, 7-8 games with Sanchez that he has played. And the Yankees made the move here. They're 10-13 right now. They get the victory last night, and going into that game last night, they said, well, you know what? We're going to ride the hot hand. And Higashioka, we know how good he is defensively behind home plate. It isn't even comparable with Gary Sanchez. And right now, after last night's game, he's hitting 320. So if you're the Yankees, why not go out there if you have a viable option other than Gary Sanchez, cut the story off at the knees. You don't have to be asked about it day in and day out. Aaron Boone addressed it. Higashioka is going to get more playing time. He's earned that playing time. And the Yankees, I think you could hide Gary Sanchez if the rest of this offense was hitting. It is not. So therefore, you look at Sanchez, he's not giving you anything offensively. I maintain that his bat was really going to dictate whether or not he remained in the lineup. He wasn't hitting, so therefore he's going to be out of the lineup.
I'm really curious about what this is actually going to look like. Is this Higgy getting 4 out of 5 days catching? Is it getting 3 out of 5? Boone kind of made it sound like it was a split, not that Higashioka was going to just be the backup now. They were going to split time and it was going to be a day-to-day kind of thing. So I'm really curious about what this looks like every single day. Is it going to be very obvious that this is like a nail in the coffin for Gary Sanchez and that this has obviously been a huge demotion for Gary, or is it more just about getting more of a split there? I've got other questions about this move, and I think it's fascinating from a lot of different angles. Number one, Moose, you mentioned it. Is it just because the Yankees could make this move? There's a lot of guys who aren't hitting on this team. Last night definitely looked a lot better. There's a lot of guys who aren't hitting, but there is not a ton of flexibility with this Yankees roster. So listen, credit the team for doing what they can do. This is one that they could actually start to make a little tweak here between Gary and Kyle, because in other places, because of the type of team you have and who you decide to put on your bench, you don't really have a lot of flexibility right now. So was this a move that they did just because they could do it? Did they think about trying to, make a replacement with anyone else? I'm not sure. The other one thing I want to know, did anyone on the pitching staff ask for Higgy? We talked about this about last week when we talked about this when Higashioka was tabbed to catch Domingo Germán in Cleveland after Germán had been recalled from the alternate site. Massive start for Domingo Germán. Why did Higashioka get the start that day when Gary had only caught the previous 2 games before that? It's not like he obviously needed a break there. Was there a reason that they wanted Higashioka behind the plate, and are pitchers now asking for Higashioka? We don't know the answer to that. I'd love to know the answer to that. Like, did Corey Kluber last night say, I'd rather throw to Higashioka? That's one thing I'd like to know. And then the final question, which is one that's not going to be answerable for a long time, is will Gary Sanchez be on this team by the end of the season? Again, I don't know what this split is going to look like. Is it going to be so obviously tilted towards Higashioka over Sanchez? Is it going to seem a little bit more 50-50? We're going to find out. But I just am starting to wonder, like we talked about how long Gary would get if his bat was slumping. We thought both about 2 months. It turned out to be a month. Is this a sign of things to come? And is Gary Sanchez on this roster by the end of the year?
Yeah, it turned out 22 games. I mean, that was the patience for the Yankees for Gary Sanchez not hitting, was 22 games on the whole. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I couldn't answer the last one for you, Maggie, about whether or not pitchers went to Aaron Boone. I'd be surprised if you're just asking me kind of gut feel. I'd be surprised if pitchers went to Boone and said, hey, we want Higashioka to catch us. So that would be surprising to me. You can't hide him. I mean, you just can't. And there really isn't. You mentioned there's a lot of guys in this lineup that are not hitting, whether it be, go down the list, Gleyber Torres, Aaron Hicks, Clint Frazier, Rougned Odor, even though he's had impactful hits, he's only hitting $170. So the Yankees have kind of, it's overtaken this entire lineup. Not kind of, it has, the lack of offense. And, last night, perfect case in point. You look at it, they hit 3 home runs, they win a baseball game 5-1. They get a quality start, right? Yep. So you see Higashioka hit a home run, Judge hits a home run, Stanton hits a home run, the Yankees win, everybody celebrates, and it was great. It doesn't cover, and the Yankees are expecting the offense to cover up the errors to this team. I think the Yankees reached a point, Maggie, where, all right, let's see what Higashioka is. He stepped into a role last year. He earned the role last year. Sanchez was abysmal offensively. Boone learned from his mistake last year. He needed to kind of connect the dots for Gary Sanchez and said he had a conversation with Gary after that was a storyline last offseason, and Gary didn't know why he was being sent to the bench, even though Cashman was pretty strong in his words saying, well, I think everybody and their mother knew why Gary Sanchez was not playing at the end of the season. Paraphrasing there, I don't think we needed to tell Gary Sanchez why he was out of the starting lineup. He wasn't hitting, so the Yankees had another viable option. Now, the other question is with Higashioka is, do you see more warts to his game? We were having a conversation with Todd Zeal about that. When you see a platoon-type player or a backup player, then you throw him into that starting lineup. Do you see more issues with them because now they get overexposed? I don't know that answer. You didn't last year with Higashioka, but that was a really small sample size. Now you're going to get a larger sample size. And, yeah, Maggie, I guess the storyline doesn't completely end because it's not a case where, Aaron Boone said, well, Higashioka is going to catch 80% of the games. Or there's not that declarative statement. So we will see how it looks. I just have a hard time thinking right now, outside of Higashioka really struggling offensively, where does Gary get the at-bats and the reps to try and dig himself out of this? Because Stanton has plugged the hole at DH. He's not going anywhere as long as he stays healthy, right? So you can't give him at-bats there. So aside from the occasional off day with Giancarlo Stanton, you look at Higashioka, if he continues to hit, how is he taken out of this lineup right now with how good he is defensively, handling a staff, everything that we've talked about with the positives as Higashioka as a catcher, and honestly, he's earned it. And I've been a Gary guy. I really have been. I've supported him. I've fought off a lot of Yankee fans that have called this station criticizing Gary Sanchez. Rightfully, I said, look at what he can do offensively up at the plate. The problem is when he's not hitting. And he is not hitting. So it's almost like the Yankees had to make this move at this stage, especially with how bad this offense was scuffling. They really were left with no other choice. And Maggie, you hit upon it. Mention it. Higashioka is a viable option. The other guys, there's really not much the Yankees can do with their lineup of who they have unless they get beset by injury. The guys like Hicks, they've got to dig themselves out of it. Frazier's got to dig himself out of it. Gleyber Torres has got to dig himself out of it. All these guys that we've talked about, Giancarlo Stanton's got to dig himself out of it because those are those guys. They need those guys to hit, and there aren't other viable options. Higashioka presented himself as being a viable option.
Yeah, it was funny. I was texting a little bit with Sweeney last night about this because I'm like, is Higashioka actually a good hitter? And we just didn't really know that he's a good hitter. We talks about how he's read Ted Williams' book, 10 times. It was his Bible. He's trying to do the slightly uppercut swing, all that stuff. And Sweeney sent me some interesting data, and I appreciate him doing that. Basically Higashioka is great hitting fastballs. He can hit fastballs, and he's going to get fastballs because no pitcher wants to walk guys like him at the bottom of the order and potentially set the table for the top of the order when the Yankees sluggers can really go on and do damage. The thing is, if Higashioka gets more time in the lineup, you're going to start seeing pitchers adjust. I mean, his numbers against breaking pitches, no bueno. 154, off-speed stuff, 125 if you're going back to 2020 this year. I mean, he's not even really being thrown a whole lot. So pitchers are going to adjust a little bit, but here's my question about that. Is it going to matter? Because here's the thing. we all expect that the Yankee bats are going to break out at some point, right? We expect that they're going to start hitting and these guys are going to get themselves out of slumps and that they are going to start mashing and they are going to start putting a lot more runs on the board. So by the time, if all that starts to click, by the time maybe the league adjusts to Higashioka and he starts coming back down to earth a little bit, does Higashioka now just become the defensive, catcher who contributes to the team in that way? And that's great. Because if guys like throwing to him, and if that's going to be his bread and butter, if the rest of the team is hitting, it's not going to matter as much. At least I don't think it's going to, which makes me believe or makes me feel like Higashioka is going to get a much tighter stranglehold on this job moving forward, than maybe we thought before. Oh, by the way, being Cole's guy doesn't hurt either, and having that kind of job security. But you mentioned it, Moose. This is like probably a little bit further down on the list of things about the Yankees last night, but when are we going to get to them sending Giancarlo and Stanton home to try to make a play at the plate when you have one of the most fragile players in all of baseball who a hamstring's going to keep him out a month, and we're sending that guy home? I mean, you touched on the bad base running. What are we doing here? I mean, come on.
It's terrible. No, it's terrible. I don't disagree. But I mean, you see him standing there. What amazes you about Stanton is a guy that just looks like, I mean, he rips the single up the middle, right, where it absolutely eats up the second baseman, right? He's sitting at
1,000 miles an hour.
All right, 100. They were joking around on the broadcast. Was it 115 miles an hour, 118 miles an hour off the bat?
Ludicrous speed,
right? Absolutely, right. And then you see him at first base, Maggie. He's got muscles on top of muscles. I mean, it just is. But he's like you have to wrap him around with bubble wrap because the next injury is right around the corner. Yeah. I mean,
that's the guy you send?
I understand that, but, he is a baseball player. I mean, he is. I don't disagree with you. I get it. He is an athlete. I mean, he's an athlete. I mean, this is what drives me. I get your point, and you're not wrong at it because we've seen all the injuries with Giancarlo Stanton. Well, the Yankees base running is terrible. That's the guy you're going to send home to have a play at home plate. That's fair, but I mean, we're looking at a guy that's getting paid what he's getting paid, and he is a professional athlete. I mean, what exactly can Giancarlo Stanton then do?
Well, it wasn't
besides
exactly
hit home runs.
That's what you need him for. It wasn't exactly the most athletic-looking slide either, which is interesting because he obviously is a very good athlete, but it doesn't matter. See, that's the thing. He just has to be in the lineup. Why you're sending a guy like that, it's like, all right, let's have a bang-bang play at home. What could possibly go wrong with a guy who's suffered injury after injury after injury? Like, why? Why?
Yeah, I get it. It's a bad decision by the third base coach, by Phil Nevin. I don't disagree, but I do get frustrated, Maggie, as a Yankee fan. Just side note, where it's like there's these Stanton rules. He can't play the outfield. He can only play DH.
Is it keeping him healthy?
Yeah, I get it's keeping him healthy. He's hitting 205. I mean, it's not like he's hitting 385. I mean, the man is, and he hit an absolute bazooka, majestic home run to straightaway center field last night. I wouldn't have sent him. I don't disagree with you. I would not have sent him, and he ends up having the play at the plate. I do, however, look at Stanton with the way that the Yankees have to handle him. It is kind of frustrating. Not kind of. It is frustrating with how protective they have to be about Giancarlo Stanton. Never plays the outfield anymore. He barely slides. We're getting into his routine in between at bats. We've talked about the yoga, the stretching during the course of the offseason, doing everything right, staying away from the weights, all of these things. This is a guy that was the MVP, in the National League with the Marlins. You look at him, what he is right now with this team, it's like you're afraid of him basically stepping out of the front door and getting hit by a bus.
Yeah, how did he win the MVP that year?
Hitting home runs
down the stretch of the season, right?
Yes.
This is what the Yankees need. This is what they need from Stanton. They don't need him sliding into home plate. Heaven forbid something happens. Look at what we heard about Judge after the game. It's going to be, did Boone say a day at least? Maybe two?
It's
soreness,
it's been
not
taxing.
Related to the last thing. This is why you don't send guys home. And the thing about Judge, I just think it's, we laughed about it because you kind of have to sort of, you're talking about, hey, these guys are professional athletes. When Aaron Boone earlier in the year said that Judge needed a day because of the wear and tear of the first 5 games of the season, you're like, oh my goodness, like you got to roll your eyes a little bit about that. It's like, listen, just say he's not available. Like to say the wear and tear of the first 5 games of the season always just was like, what? Now you have Aaron Judge as a miss a day because some soreness, so that's interesting. And where is that soreness related to? Kind of general soreness. And then the other part is like, because of the travel? Because of the travel. What did he walk to Baltimore?
Maggie, I don't. Some of the stuff with Boone, it goes in one ear out the other. Yeah, I know that the travel. It's not like they're sleeping on cots or an air mattress. I mean,
are they in a tour bus?
Right, the travel is not all that taxing. I don't. It's not like
they didn't even leave the Eastern Time Zone.
It's not like they're all hopping into the Shaggy Mobile from Scooby Doo or the Scooby Doo and driving down. No, I agree with you. I get it. I understand. Yeah, the wear and tear for Judge and now the wear and tear of the travel for Judge is now going to have him out for the next day, maybe two.
They went from Cleveland to Baltimore. This isn't exactly the Iditarod. I mean, I don't. You're on a private jet. You're staying at the Four Seasons. Like, I listen. Whatever athletes need. Like, this is not a commentary on athletes and all of the things that they're afforded. Give them everything. But I mean, the travel.
Maggie, what do you want me to tell you? The Yankees have got two brittle stars, okay? I mean, that's what they have.
And this is why you don't send one of them home to slide at the home plate.
I don't disagree that they shouldn't have sent him, but it does get to a point. It's like, okay, aside from just hitting, what exactly does Giancarlo Stanton do? He doesn't
he doesn't
do anything.
Mostly.
He can barely slide. When he does slide, it looks like he's about to injure himself. I don't disagree about sending him home. I wouldn't have done it, and I think it was absolutely a mistake. But they are baseball players. You have to remember that. But yeah, it was a bad decision by Nevin to send him home. For the Yankees on the whole here, you're not going to have Judge here as he's dealing with the strains of the travel schedule for the Yankees and dealing with a little soreness.
Soreness is one thing. Soft. If he's sore, okay. Like, obviously, give him as much time as he needs. I'm a load management like flag bearer. That's fine for me. It's just like the travel.
Do you like a nice Cleveland firm mattress? Are you a firm mattress gal or a soft mattress? Like, do you like a?
Yeah. So firm on the mattress, soft on the mattress. I like the foam on top of the mattress.
You got a little pillow top.
Definitely with a pillow top. If you're not Moose, it's the year 2021.
I understand.
Come on, NASA is involved.
So you're going
right?
pillow top firm mattress.
No, pillow top on top of the mattress for a little softness, but a firm pillow.
Oh, firm pillow.
Yeah, I'm a firm pillow person.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Like, just give me a cinder block.
Oh, my God.
Just give me a stack of magazines. I'll just lay my head on that.
Yeah, I think I'm more of I kind of like it's got to be like a cloud when you lay down. Like you lay down.
That kind of jives with you.
Yes, it's got to be a nice cloud. I like soft pillows. Yes, that's all like if you're sleeping on like a firm mattress, terrible soreness the next morning. Then I could really Taron Judge. Maybe you slept on too firm of a mattress.
Listen, the guy's 6'7". I imagine you're not going somewhere. It's probably not ideal all the time when you're that tall. Sure, you're going to run into some things, but I mean, like, seriously, you didn't take a rickshaw. Like, it's pretty comfortable, I would imagine, from Cleveland to Baltimore.
I would imagine it is, especially if you're playing for the Yankees.